Now I'd like to invite Professor Kang Seonjou, Institute of Foreign Affairs and National Security, who is kindly agreed to give a comment on this whole chapters. But I don't think we have much time, but still I'm very eager to listen to Professor Kang's comment. You have 10 minutes, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Kwon. It is my pleasure to take part in this seminar to reflect on Japan and South Korea's development cooperation. And before I proceed, I inform you that my comments are not confined to the 4 chapters authored by the Korean scholars. My comments are more general, sometimes reach to Japanese chapters too. So, generally speaking, comparative research enables us to identify similarities and differences in 2 groups and harvest lessons from them. Particularly in the field of development cooperation, comparative research generates valuable information that academics, practitioners, and government officials can utilize to deliver better development outcomes. By the same token, comparative research on Japan and South Korea's development cooperation provides an valuable opportunity to learn what works, what does not, and emulate good practices from the 2 countries in development cooperation. Further, so I think from the beginning, this book chose an interesting agenda for comparison: the role of the private sector and civil society in development cooperation. As far as I remember, previous comparative works on Japan and South Korea's development cooperation hardly touched those agenda. So this is a real innovation and breakthrough in the study of development cooperation. But more importantly, this book stands out because it captures a fundamental aspect of development cooperation. That is, development cooperation does not take place in a vacuum. Development cooperation is defined by national and international context and changes over time or evolve over time. The national context for development cooperation, especially on the donor side, includes national interest, foreign policy, and public opinion. The international context for development cooperation includes international norms and economic and political openness. The national and international context to determine how a donor country perceives the development cooperation and its goals, and adopts the mode of implementation. The private sector and civil society in development, as analyzed in this book, present this case. So if anyone out there thinks that development cooperation takes place in a vacuum or only for idea and goals, they should really read this book and think again about development cooperation. This book also shows that the political economic donor country determine the way it accommodates international norms for development cooperation, with a slight exaggeration, maybe a lot, but with a slight exaggeration. Sustainable development goals could be regarded as an international norm for development cooperation. Sustainable development goals, like the Millennium Development Goal, works as function as a paradigm for development cooperation. I think it is safe to call the SDG as an international norm for development cooperation. South Korea shows differences in accommodating the sustainable development goals in their development cooperation. Japan adopts the SDGs in a way that it reduces development cooperation traditional sense, and the role of civil society organizations while increasing the private sector in development cooperation. On the other hand, Korea tries to embrace the sustainable development goals in full, but with no visible results yet. And I think Professor Kim Tae-gyun's presentation displays how Korea has been eager to embrace the SDGs in changing or setting up institutional or organizational structures, something like that. So I think there's difference between Japan and South Korea about accommodating or adopting the sustainable development goals. I think this difference comes from the stage that Japan and South Korea hold respectively as a donor country. Japan, which has a 60-year experience of development cooperation, has reached the point of aid fatigue. South Korea, on the other hand, holds a positive view on development cooperation, given its relatively short experience in development cooperation. South Korea will still has a long way to go before facing aid fatigue, or never will. Hopefully, yeah. So that is that difference stage of development cooperation that Japan and South Korea holds made a difference about their attitude toward the sustainable development goals. Then, where does this book lead us? Or what does this book tell us about the future of development cooperation? International relations are entering into a phase of uncertainty after the COVID-19 pandemic. And many donor countries are going through political and economic aftershocks of the pandemic. Following the arguments underlying this book, development cooperation will face challenges with the changes taking place in donor countries and the international community. Development cooperation, particularly based on official resource transfer, will need to be prepared to take on a new conceptualization of development and approaches. Truly, an uncertain and challenging time lies ahead of development. I said that I have to end my comment on a sad note. The scholars, gathering here will be properly prepared for the future coming to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kang, and I will take your comment and really first comment on the book, but still critical. One thing this book took is in terms of the approach is we see the international development as ecosystem. So we are not only focused on the government policy, but we try to incorporate the civil society and private enterprise as a whole, as a kind of system, ecosystem of international development. That's why we include these chapters. So just before finish the session on, I'd like to give opportunity to contributors, Dr. Kim and Dr. Song, who contribute but didn't have a say. So why not just to say hello to the audience as also of the chapters. Dr. Kim, you first.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, I already presented my presentation at the first hour book launch seminar last November in Japan. I did not present my chapter, but it was a very honored to be able to participate as the editor of this book, and I analyzed why Korea is economic oriented, and I could find that the Japanese also have very similar characteristics while I'm reading my paired chapter. And I hope that the two countries can find ways to contribute to the international community together in the future. And this comparative study between Korea and Japan academic society may be the basis of the cooperation of the two countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Kim Bo-kyung, just to say hello.
Okay, thank you. Also, as Professor Kim, I was a speaker for the book launch that was held in Japan in November, and it's very great and an honor to be here to be a part of the Korean book launch seminar today, and also to be one of the authors of chapter 12. And it was also very interesting to read our partner chapter written by Professor Yamagata Tasufumi, and I learned a lot from other colleagues as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Professor Seonjou.
Thank you, everyone. Just like the two Dr. Kims before, I also presented my chapter in the November seminar. Again, thank you very much to all the editors and both the former presidents of KAIDEC and JASI for this wonderful opportunity. And it was a great exercise for me to really thoroughly review Korea's aid history. And hopefully with this quickly changing global development cooperation landscape, I can, use this to kick off future research. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, the other thing is that we try to mix the established scholars and young emerging scholars together, so to make international development studies in Korea and Japan more sustainable. So this is why we have a whole range of different ages and experience of authors. So thank you very much for the end of the first session.